Good morning. Welcome to episode 9 of That Morning Cup. I do have the mic clipped to a pencil because this shirt is not very conducive for this mic. But cheers. There's two things I want to talk about this morning. Picking your partner is one, and my sister's travels that I am extremely jealous of. We will start with the lighter of the subjects, which is my sister's travels. My sister is in Italy right now, and she is in the town where my grandfather was born. Sal, my Papa Sal. And I have not been too jealous of her travels up until this point. Actually, before I get into any of this, I want to preface the reason I have this crazy ass colorful shirt on is because I did just get back from a run like 20 minutes ago. I just finished 8 miles, a little over 8 miles. And I have to get this done because I'm not going to be home for like a week because I have a big land clearing job about 45 minutes away from my house. So I'm just going to stay pretty close to location at my dad's house and whatnot. And I got to pack and everything. The machines get delivered there tomorrow evening. And that, so I just have a lot to do tonight. So I didn't feel like changing all that. I just figured let's get this done, edited, and uploaded and ready to go for this morning while you're watching it. So, I want to talk about my sister's travels. I have not been jealous of her travels up until this point, I will admit. You know, some places she went. The first time I got an inkling of jealousy is when she went to Vietnam. I was, like, mega jealous because I even have a Vietnam book right here. When I was a young kid, I was obsessed with the war there. And then just started to enjoy learning about the culture and just the country as a whole. And I was jealous when she went there. Now she's in Famone, which is where my grandfather's from, and I'm even more jealous. She found his birth certificate. We did find out his birthday might not actually be in August as we've always celebrated it, and he's never said anything any different. But the birth certificate says September, so we might have been celebrating his birthday early for my entire life and my mom's entire life and everything. So if he didn't say anything about it, doesn't matter. But it's just cool to think she is walking the same ground that he walked in the 40s, like 80 years ago. Almost 90 years ago now. He was born in 38. He was there for the whole time of the war. And she found the church that he was baptized in. We're not super religious people, but the fact that she found that, and to think like at one point in time my old grandfather, who I've only known as old, was a small infant, a baby, a child, then like he was a teenager, and he experienced the first 15 years of his life in this village. And I said to her, I was like, Miranda, I'm like, you literally, if you sit down in that church, I'm like, there's a chance you're sitting in the same spot that he was sitting 70 years ago. I'm like, isn't that fucking crazy? 75 years ago. Walking up and down. She found the street that he grew up on. Just walk up and down that street. I'm like, if you're breathing the same air he breathed at one point. And to think I could be literally walking the exact same ground he was walking. While war was going on and uncertainty, his brother dying, his dad disappearing, That's one guy that I wish was alive, because I would have him on That Morning Cup, and he could talk for hours. And I could just pick his brain. Same thing with my other grandfather, who's no longer here. Both of them would have been phenomenal guests. But I will admit, Miranda, I know you're watching this. I am extremely jealous that you're in Italy. And she's trying to get me to go to Italy next year, but I have a chronic fear of flying. And I wouldn't call it an irrational fear. I never call it an irrational fear because of the fact that it's not super irrational. Like, you can die on an airplane. It's happened before. So is it that irrational? Yes, the odds are really, really slim, but never zero. But now let's talk about the deeper topic, picking your partner. And I thought about this while running today. I am so blessed with Matea, and I'm forever indebted to her for getting me into running. I can't even begin to explain my just horrific relationship with running throughout the years. I've always been somebody interested in running, and I would get the motivation, I should say, to run every now and again in the past probably like decade. Like I used to like try to run at my old house when I was like 13. And I always just felt too much pain. I'm like, this sucks. I can't do it. And I always would give up on it, right? And never in a million years would I ever like have those I would never have ran a 5K. I certainly would have never have ran a half marathon. And I would have punched you in the fucking throat if 4 years ago you said, hey, you're going to run a full marathon in 2026. I'd be like, get the fuck out of here. And the fact that I was able to go run 8 miles and it wasn't the worst thing in the entire world is so motivating. And just, it's exciting. And I can't even begin to like explain it. I'm to the point now, like where I was running on the treadmill the other day, listening to Metallica, of course. And this is going to, okay, you guys got to stay with me here on this one. It's going to sound psychotic and almost schizophrenic. But I was only supposed to run 3 miles. I ended up like running 4.5 or 4. But like around like the 2 mile mark, I swear to God, I like zoned out. Metallica, I swear, like tapped into my joints, released all the pressure. It felt like I was floating. Like I was floating on Kirk Hammett's guitar riffs. I swear to God. All the pain went away. And it was like my body went back to what it was made to do. Like it tapped into something ancestral in my brain. And it was like my body just went bam and figured out what it needs to do to be efficient and to be pain-free to keep running. Like I don't even know how to explain it. And then I swear I was like, I felt like presence around me. I'm like, my ancestors are around me right now, and we're running through the Sahara to go get food. And it was the weirdest fucking thing in the entire world. And it felt like I could have literally ran forever. There was no pain at all. My lungs felt fine. My knees, my ankles, hips, but everything felt ready to rock and roll. And like I could have literally went until forever. And I've never felt that in my life. Like, is that what runner's high is? I think so. That's the best way I could explain it. But it's literally like Kurt Hammett's guitar riffs were a float, a cloud that I was on. And Metallica and my ancestors just relieved all the pain from my joints. And my body was like, oh, this is what we were made to do. And it's like, oh, it's been a couple 100 years, but we're back. It was weird. It's like my body was able to comprehend it again. And it was just like, yep, knew what to do. Followed right in line, and there I was going. And I would have never thought that would be a thing for me. And now that brings me back to picking your partner. I owe Matea everything for that. It's still mind-blowing to me that, like, I can go run 3 miles and I'm not going to fucking explode over it. I'm not going to die over it. And I could do it, like, in a pace that, obviously, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a fast pace, but I really don't give a fuck. I truly only care, like, am I getting faster myself? And it's like, when I first started running, like, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when I was preparing for the 5K, I was running, like, 11:30-minute miles. But that's, like, what I had to do to feel minimal pain. Like, if I wanted to run multiple miles, I had to run at that pace, or I couldn't. My shins would always lock up. I remember being in high school trying to run to the gym one day, 2 miles, and my shins would lock up. And it was only 2 miles. I remember I got like 3/4 of a mile in, and I had to walk the rest of the way. It's so crazy. And I wasn't like a out of shape person. It's just my body was never ready to run, you know. And I did track all 4 years of high school. And the 1 mile warm up was literally the worst thing I could have ever done. Like, I hated it every practice. I was in so much pain. And to think now I just ran 8 miles and it was pain free. And it's like I would have went longer if I didn't have to film this, if I didn't have to get a bunch of stuff ready, you know, for this work week and such. Or, well, the following work week. Well, I think I'm working Saturday and Sunday, so I shouldn't really call it a work week. But the upcoming job. And like I've said, I'm forever indebted to Matea for that. I owe Matea all of that. She's the one that inspired me to get into it. And reminded me of my potential, that I have the ability to do it. And just, I mean, her drive is what's inspiring me, and just pushing me to do these events. Like, I would have never in a million years have signed up for one. I would have never signed up for a 5K or a half marathon. And that would have, without those, I would never even have a purpose or a reason to start running. So I probably wouldn't have. But that's where Matea comes in, and that's where she's helped me out tremendously. And I thank her forever for that. And I thank her for putting up with me when I've been a dick while we're running, and I've felt pain when we first started. And I'm like, motherfucker, look at it. And I just would be so mad at myself because I would think in my head, I'm like, you're such a pussy, bro. Like, why are you feeling all this pain? And I would just bitch and complain, And she loves running. Like, it's so euphoric for her. So, like, I could not imagine being so excited to do something, especially, like, a half marathon, and then there's me behind you, just, like, not being a dick to her, but just being self-loathing, and that obviously, like, rubs up. People don't like somebody that's self-loathing around them. But this marathon's going to be different, okay? I'm going to try not to do that. I'm really giving this training my all here, and giving it an effort so I don't have to, drag my lifeless body across the finish line. Another thing I think that's very important when picking a partner, you should want to make sacrifices for that person to be happy, but don't get with somebody where you're forced to make sacrifices, right? Obviously, in a relationship, there's going to be hard times. There's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be times where you have to compromise, and that might mean you have to sacrifice more than the other person or whatnot. But don't be with somebody that you have to lower your standards, that you have to lower what's important to you. What you have to, you have to set what's important to you aside, to ensure that they're happy. There's things in life that are way bigger than others, okay? And yes, that can be subjective and it can be objective, but there's objective things in life that are bigger than other things, okay? And if your partner cannot identify or is not aware at the time of, like, if there's a situation where you have to choose between, like, you guys both have to choose who's going to compromise here. You have to weigh what's being compromised, okay? If you have to compromise something that's fucking huge and is massively important, objectively important, if you have to sacrifice that for something that is subjectively important to this person, that's a scary future for you, I guess. Because, like I said, what's important is obviously a perspective. Some people perceive other things more important than others. But, like, there's certain things, health, family, those are at the top of the heap when it comes to important. Everything else is pale in comparison, right? So if you're sacrificing some of the most important things so your partner can be happy with their preference, you might want to really think, and do not fall victim to acquiescence. You could, people I think are sometimes not out of maliciousness or malicious intent, but sometimes people make decisions that they actually don't really want in their heart because of their partner, because their partner wants to do this thing or whatnot. And just because their partner wants to do it, it's not malicious. They're not being malicious if you make that decision, because, like, that's just in your own brain you make that decision, unless, like, somebody's physically or emotionally or verbally forcing you to make this decision, but sometimes we try to be easy. We try to be fair. I shouldn't say fair. We try to be easy. We try to be laid back, and that can be at our own detriment. And I think resentments build an acquiescence. If I'm using that word correctly, but it's you're making a decision, you're going through with it, and you think you feel happy. Like you're like, yeah, you know what, I could be cool with this decision. This ain't that bad. Isn't, not ain't, but isn't that bad. And then it might be years for that to rear its head, and you go, you know what? I actually really didn't enjoy making this decision. I was just blinded by trying to be laid back. And I think you should be laid back to an extent, but I also think you should have your standards. You should have what's important to you, and don't deviate from them to try to be easy to get along with, because resentments will build. And I think people sometimes have a hard time admitting when maybe this isn't working out, or maybe this isn't what I want. But I feel like I'm so sunk cost fallacy. You've already sunk so much into it that you might as well sink with the fucking ship. But that's just it's a lot easier said than done to not go through with that. But I feel like we do that a lot. It's like we sunk so much into it. It's like, oh, we might as well ride this out, and way more damage is done trying to ride it out than if you just stood back, realized, okay, I guess this just isn't in my cards. This isn't what was planned for me. You know, if that makes sense. So I think it's important to do an inventory check every now and again. And before you make huge life decisions, especially with somebody, think, is this genuinely what I want? I need to think about what's the next 5 years going to look like? What's the next 10 years going to look like? What's important to me? Am I not giving up, but am I loosening my grip on what's important to me just to make this other person happy? And I think it is ultra important to get with somebody that agrees that a relationship is not always, I shouldn't say it's always 50-50, because a relationship is not always 50-50, but I forget who said it, but it's like, sometimes you're giving 25% and they're giving 75%, and then sometimes you're giving 75% and they're giving 25%, but at the end of the day, it weighs out to 50-50, and just you have a few things that you deem as the utmost important, and do not loosen your grip on those, okay? Especially for things that are not super important, and that the person can live without. You know, now if it's like their biggest, greatest hobby, it's very situational. But I think it's childish. Very childish. Sometimes when people will throw a fit because they're not getting their way and not getting what they prefer, because their partner needs a decision to be made for their utmost important thing to occur, if that makes sense. I got it in my brain, but I don't really know how to articulate it right now. It's been a long day. Brain's running on fumes. Haven't eaten very much, but I have eaten some Go Gels, and BPN Go Gels are not too bad. Neither is, what did Mateo give me? I forget what kind of gels they were. I tried one of those too. Gels aren't too bad, and they do work. They're effective for sure. I took one today at 5 miles. Well, I took one 15 minutes before I ran, and then I took one at 5 miles. And it definitely does something. It's effective. And then when I ran 10 miles on Saturday, I took one at 6 miles. And it does give you a little push start, a little jump start, for sure. But I notice I have to like take in like a quarter of it or a third of it, run a little bit, another third of it, run a little bit, another third of it. I've not just taking the whole thing like one shot because I think that would fuck up my stomach and be weird running. I do need to get a water bottle too, like a hand strapped water bottle, because I get so thirsty and I don't want to run with like a capped water bottle. And I don't want to stop. So like trying to unscrew the cap and then trying to like sip with the capped water bottle doesn't work. Like I just need to get one that like has that strapped to your hand and you could just squeeze it. So much I gotta get. It's exciting though. It is so exciting. That's gonna be all. This is a shorter one, but I just have so much to do. This has been a crazy week with reading, to be honest. Like I didn't work Monday and Tuesday, so I read like a bandit. And then I worked yesterday and today. Not super physically demanding days, but it's just been a lot of mental thinking with this big job, this land clearing job. Like what size machines, just make sure I cross all my T's and dot all my I's, because you don't want to get to the job site and forget shit. And these are some big trees that gotta come down. So just been thinking about how to game plan that. You know, the joys. Hopefully I could sit back in 10 years and the company's pretty big. Me and Riley could laugh about it and miss kind of this stressed feeling. But sometimes, like yesterday, man, it just makes you want to lay down and fucking curl up in a ball, to be honest. You know? And yesterday, full transparency, I kind of did. I didn't go to the gym, and I just kind of sat in the chair and I did a lot of researching. Which I guess is good. That nervousness means you're preparing. I don't want to go in so fucking ignorant, like I could just, I'm Superman and then I forget stuff, or I get hurt, or I don't do my due diligence. But yesterday it kind of consumed me. It's a mix between fear and excitement. I'm so excited. Like this is my dream job. Like just being in the woods, running machines, cutting trees. But this is the biggest job we've probably ever had. Not probably, it is. Like, I'm trying to think. Like, that retaining wall is a pretty big job, and that went for so many days. This is a big job. These are some big trees. It's going to take a lot of work. And I just really don't want to let the customer down, because, like, we're, like, family friends. And he's taking a big risk on two young guys, but this is what it's gonna take. If this is what I want to do for a living, I gotta take this leap and just go for it. And it's not a technical job at all. Like it's cutting down trees and moving them. It's all I'm doing, and digging out stumps. But it's just like, oh my God, well, is the machine big enough to dig out these stumps? Is it going to be too muddy? Yada, yada, yada. What if this? And what if this tree doesn't come down and it lands on me? There's just, it's good, I guess. It's good to be nervous, because I feel like I feel like I'm prepared, but I mean, we've never really done this. We did little clearing jobs. But these are massive oaks and shit, like 80-foot high trees, big ass trees. And I've cut trees down my whole life. It's just like, now this is professional. This is for somebody's home. So it's just a lot of pressure, but I feel really grateful for the pressure, because I've wanted a job like this for so fucking long. And I hope we get many, many, many more jobs like this afterwards, and that we can get our own equipment, and like this is what we just do, because I love being in the fucking woods, and this is a job where I could be in the woods. It's dumb work. I'm running machines, which I love to run machines, and I like an intense job. I like that little bit of pit in your stomach when you're cutting these trees down, and with these fucking lawn chair, I think it's called. I don't know the exact terms, but when we just got to pay attention, But I'm excited and nervous at the same time. But I think that's a good thing. I'm glad that we have this pressure. I'm glad we have somebody that's willing to take the risk on us. Because, in any business that's starting, you need at least one person to take that risk, to get anywhere. If nobody wanted to take the risk, I guess we would never get that first try, that first chance. All right, that's going to conclude episode 9. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Enjoy your weekend. I hope everybody's coffee was phenomenal. And like I've said every week up to this point, use your weekend wisely. Don't just waste it away. All right, I will talk to you guys tomorrow, or next week, rather. Peace.